are these people?
I kind of understand why some people are, because it's not like I have a fortune ball, a magic ball that I can see into the future that I know what this guy is going to do. I guess there's always a chance he's like some kind of hidden populist candidate. But, AOC also said she had a plan.
That's what I'm saying.
I have a plan. I have a secret plan. And so, like...
There you go.
Yeah, and I'm not suggesting that they're the same, but like these politicians, they always say like they have a plan and to trust the plan.
Well,
and
that's why I sniffed out when I spoke to like Colin about this and pretty much like everyone like in our circle, like pretty much days after RFK announced his campaign, I smelled Tulsi 2.0 vibes right away. I'm like, this is and you notice it's the same exact people. It's the same exact crowd. They're all gathering around Tulsi. And it's the same thing. It's Tulsi 2.0. And like I don't know, do you think he's gonna endorse Joe Biden? I mean, there's a lot of like, there's a lot to say that he's not going to, but
as far as Tulsi 2.0, like I feel like if that's his strategy to just kind of cater to the American isolationists, then he should just run Republican. Like, why is he doing this? He's just basically sheep-herding Republicans into the Democratic Party, as if the Democratic Party didn't already do that in the last election with Joe Biden.
Well, no, that's the thing. Our Republicans would need to switch to a Democrat in order to even vote. I don't think that's that's, despite he is getting funded by a lot of GOP donors. I mean, like it's literally like Heal the Divide. It's literally Ron DeSantis. It's the same exact guy.
And people act like, okay, I know that New York City is not representative of the country, right? I understand that. It's not like I'm an idiot. However, this guy came to New York City at least 3 times before going to that black barbershop in Harlem, the celebrity barbershop. I don't know what that guy's name is, but he came 3 times just to cater to the Zionists. The private meetings, he visited Vera Sharov to celebrate Israel's birthday. Like, there was a point where I was like, is this guy ever going to come to New York City to talk to anybody that is not a Zionist? Finally, he did. And he did that barbershop segment because it's like, are you really like only coming to New York City for the Zionists? And then what ended up happening was people kept seeing that. Like, people don't understand the backstory to this. People kept seeing that on Twitter, how he was always coming to New York City just to visit the Zionists. And then finally he did an event which was like defending against anti-Semitism with this guy, Rabbi Shmuley, who actually has a very bad reputation.
He wants to bomb the shit out of
He has a very bad reputation in New York City among Jewish people.
What was that tweet that you had with the Shmuley in the sheets or something like that? What was his TV shows that he was doing? Oh,
Matthew Hoffa. That's his name. Sorry, that slipped my mind. Thank you, Roger. I'm sorry. What did you say?
What's his name? What's the shows that he was doing? The Shmuley in the sheets or something like that?
Shalom in the Home. That's he had like a reality TV show called Shalom in the Home, and he had like a book come out that was like Secrets of Kosher Sex. It's like he's like a total kook, It's crazy. And that's the guy that he chose to represent the Jewish people, to assure everyone that he's not. He doesn't care about anti-Semitism, this guy. Robert Kennedy does not care about anti-Semitism. His thing is about looking good with the Zionists, which is a different thing. Like, people keep conflating Zionism with Judaism, and it's 2 different things. So that's why when we went to the video, we showed like the protests of people protesting outside. There was like Orthodox Jews protesting outside, and they explained this. They explained how Zionism is different than Judaism. And then there's several different people that heckled. One of them was Jewish. 2 of them were Jewish. So it's like, and then not only that, but there's other people in New York. There's like a big Arab community. There are other people that are just sympathetic. It's actually a very important thing in New York. I'm not saying that it should be the most important thing in every part of the country, but this is a very diverse country with like a diverse variety of opinions, and this guy is a neocon, the guy that he chose to represent Jews. For his little,
there's a lot like. I'm really glad this guy came out. Like, I'm not. Have you seen this? What's his name? The rabbi.
I don't remember what his name is, but he is like part of a kind of. I would say it's like the most left position for Zionism, which is like they believe that Israel should not exist at all. Basically,
it shouldn't. It was created like so. The state of Israel was created out of Zionism. It's a political ideology.
I understand why they also believe it's kind of also has some like conservative tinges to it that when the Messiah returns, they can go back to Israel. So that part is a little like kind of questioned by the more secular Jews. But overall, like they kind of support the Palestinian movement, and not just the Palestinians. Like the entire Middle East supports the Palestinian movement. That's what people don't, like Egypt, Syria, Lebanon, Iraq, Iran. You know what I mean? Like everybody sees Israel as a colonizing force. Now, personally, I actually don't totally agree with the Naturi Carta that Israel should not exist. I just feel like it's kind of a done deal in some ways. I don't know if that makes sense. Like the colonization of America was also horrible, but what are you going to do now? Like send all the white people back to Europe? Like I don't know if that makes sense. Like, I feel like there should be space for thinking out some kind of solution. I'm not an expert, but there should definitely be a desegregation movement. Like people are not understanding that Israel is one of the least democratic countries in the Middle East in this way. Like, for example, you cannot marry interreligious, like you cannot have interfaith marriages in Israel. That is very different from the United States. It's like, yes, we have our horrible laws, but Loving versus Virginia passed. What was that in the 60s? Loving versus Virginia. So after that, like interracial marriage was approved, and you can marry whoever you want now in the United States. Israel isn't there yet. Like people don't understand the gravity. Right? And then when you point it out, they'll say things like, well, in other Arab countries...
but it's a free and open society. That's what our...
Right. But the thing about other Arab countries, it's like, yes, there are also human rights issues in other Arab countries or other countries in the Middle East, Asia, whatever. However, those countries are not upheld by the United States as some kind of democratic model. Like, that is the problem. Like, the hypocrisy is that... Israel is just as undemocratic as a lot of the neighboring countries around it, but they're always kissing their ass. Every member of Congress is like, Israel, the only democracy in the Middle East, blah blah. It's like, no,
you can't get
what are we talking about here?
You can't. There's not a single president. There's not a single person in Congress that's not like, at least in policy wise, not a Zionist. They're all Zionists. You get notice the only candidate you can get is Cornel West, who's who's been good on this issue for years, but he's running a Green Party, which we all admit is not going to win. Realistically, we know that we're shooting for like a 5%, 10% with that one, but regardless,
Roger is put a really interesting comment. It says not Matthew, just Matt. It's a 5% Nation of Islam thing that Black people adopted starting in the 70s. Yes, I know. Wow, that's interesting that he's going with Nation of Islam and with the rabbi.
But if you heard RFK Jr. here, he'll say Israel is the most democratic, free, open society in the Middle East, and it's.
I like to do these things, whatever. So can you?
Yeah, with God's help, we're basically here to clarify, to educate that Judaism is a religion, subservience to God, and Zionism, the state of Israel, is antithetical to that. It's contradictory to that. It's a transformation from religion to nationalism. My religion, Judaism, is 3,000 years old, and this movement of the state of Israel, this nationalist movement of Zionism, is a mere 100-odd years, and it's totally forbidden according to our Torah what they are doing. To occupy, to kill, to steal, to oppress the Palestinian people is really unacceptable. It's a rebellion against God. It's not our religion, yet they are masquerading the state of Israel in Jewish name, Israel, and the Star of David, and using all the Jewish symbols in order to stifle any voice that opposes what they're doing by accusing people of being anti-Semitic. And that's unacceptable. We want the world to know that the Zionist state of Israel has no right to speak in our name, of our holy religion of Judaism. We want the world to know the distinct difference between what we are, our religion, and what Zionism, the state of Israel, is. We are, again, people, peaceful religion of being subservient to God. We cry and hurt with the Palestinian people and their suffering. We are humiliated beyond words to what is being done to the Palestinian people for well over 75 years now.
Even if you saw this, with the Savvy show, which with Gage and Richie, which frankly is probably better coverage, and you guys should watch that video. But
I put it in the links. We should definitely play that one because it hasn't been played at all. Richie's video. I think that one is really important, and also the one about there's like a bunch of them.
I got them all linked in there. Let's watch. Do you want to watch yours first? I just want to get across real quick the idea that Israel is not it's not just a one issue policy. You can't just not be funding Israel casually and fixing domestic policy at the same exact time. They're directly funded together. Now, Israel has our government so much by the balls that they can literally attack American ships. They can kill 36 Americans and get off scot-free. They're untouchable.
I really recommend if anybody has... Oh, are you going to talk about the USS Liberty? No, this is another video. Okay.
Across the Middle East, the USS Liberty was sent to the Mediterranean to intercept Egyptian radio transmissions. By June 8th, Israel was on day 4 of the Six-Day War, and the crew aboard the Liberty found themselves unwittingly in the midst of a war. Israeli forces first spotted the Liberty at around 5:55 a.m., but they weren't sure whom the boat belonged to, so they left it alone. According to the Israeli investigation, the vessel was marked as a neutral ship, and after a few hours without updates on its movements, the ship was cleared from the board and was forgotten by the ship that came to replace them in the morning. At 11:24 a.m., Israeli forces reported a huge explosion at El Arish, a town on the coast of the Sinai Peninsula that was recently captured by Israel. When they looked to the water for the attackers, they spotted the Liberty. But according to Israeli reports, the Liberty didn't have any markings or flags raised. In hindsight, it's obvious the Liberty wasn't attacking anyone.
This is like a spy ship, so they have US printed all over this.
Right, and they raised the American flag to show because during the Six-Day War, America initially was neutral. And they actually had a very good relationship
in the beginning
with Egypt. What ended up happening, Richard Medhurst knows more about this than I do, and he did a pretty good segment on the USS Liberty about how
they're all good on this.
Yeah, the Zionists basically tried to do a bunch of false flag attacks, blame it on the Egyptians in order to deteriorate basically the relationship between the friendliness, I guess, between U.S. and Egypt, and then they actually attacked this American ship. They basically totally killed a bunch of people, and they kept bombing it even after they raised the American flag. Again, America was initially neutral in this war. So actually, it really goes to show the level of it's kind of interesting because like when you talk about the American Empire, you say like, well, the US, like the most powerful military in the world. It's like, yes, we do have the most powerful military in the world, and we do wreak havoc on a lot of nations, but the Israelis and the British have a surprising amount of power on us still. And a lot of that is like not really talked about. So it's like we're a colonial power, but we're also like they also have us by the balls as well.
Was not the murder of Robert JFK. He was not the murder of Robert Kennedy's father. He was not the murder. Hassan was implicated in the murder. Why are you lying? Why are you such a coward, Robert Kennedy? Why don't you say the truth about what actually happened and call for a real investigation into your father's murder?
Thank you. Thank you very much. Everyone, please ignore her.
Everyone, please ignore her. Please ignore her. Which I thought was interesting because he admits that it's not.
Workers. He was the guy who.
He admits it wasn't Sirhan Sirhan.
He said it in his own. He said it wasn't. However, I think the thing about him is that he. I don't know. I really don't know what the situation is.
No, but there was an article that I saw where he was like talking like him and Shmuley was saying that like.
But Shmuley was saying straight up that he was killed by a Palestinian, and that Robert F. Kennedy's father died because of his friendship with Israel.
Yeah, yeah.
That is not
wild.
That is not completely accurate.
Wild, the type of shit you would see here.
And the thing is, basically, like. Unless he really does have some kind of secret plan here, his dad is basically rolling over in his grave. Like, it's insulting to shit on your family legacy to the point where you would befriend the Zionists.
Well, I mean, his family is like really connected to Israel, to be fair.
Yeah, I mean, they were connected, but, it didn't end well for them. So you would think that would have been a learning lesson.
Yeah.
Unit were ex-CIA agents who had trained in the CIA farm in Virginia and shipped down to Latin America to do dirty tricks work there and then brought back for this investigation. And they destroyed, before Sirhan's trial, they destroyed 1,200 pieces of evidence, including all the bullets, and about 1,200 photographs as well that were taken in the room that night.
Why did Shmuley say
there's a lot of questions. I believed that there had been a trial. As it turns out, there wasn't a trial. Sirhan's attorney was an attorney who somehow, and nobody can explain how, he was a mob attorney who was representing Johnny Roselli, who had been, at that time, there was a famous trial in Los Angeles called the Friars Catholic. He didn't have a home address, but in the middle of all that, he was somehow appointed as Sirhan's attorney. He told Sirhan to plead guilty. If Sirhan had pleaded innocent, there was no way that he could have gotten convicted because the bullets that were in his gun, the bullets that killed my father, did not match the ballistics of the bullets in his gun or the bullets that hit the other 8 people in the room.
Cover up big time. Whoa.
So I really, that's confusing to me. I don't really, you can't have a candidate that's like not consistent on your positions like this. You really can't.
I really thought it was beyond this. It was like the entire tone of the entire event. This is supposed to be like the truth teller, the candidate that brings people together. The whole thing was full of all of these tropes, you know,
it was the meeting of the Zionists.
and it wasn't like racist tropes the way that Trump is racist, you know, where he'll be like, oh, Mexicans are rapists, and he just like says whatever he decides to fart that day, he just says whatever pops into his head.
No,
it was like
supremacy.
It was like liberal racism. You know, it was like Israel is the only democracy in the Middle East, like very well justified. All of these narratives that he spun in order to explain that Israel is the only place where you have LGBTQ rights, and the other places are like these backwards Arab nations. Like that was like the meat of the event.
We were gaslighting for 2 hours. He was like, oh, Israel's the most free democracy in the Middle East.
Yeah, the most free. You know, I really, the thing about it is that like all of his lying is like, the thing about it is that people that don't understand the, you know, the area, the region, whatever, they hear that and they believe it, right? So like they're like, oh, Israel. Have you ever been to any of these other countries? I'm not saying that they're like paragons of democracy, but even a lot of their dictatorships, it's like the U.S., they came in and like tried to, you know, install puppet governments. There are several Arab nations where there's actually more religious freedom than Israel, where technically you can intermarry people of like different faiths, whatever.
And often
that is not exact. It's not what he's saying. Like it really isn't. And not only that, but Zionism has made it worse for Jewish people that are from other parts of the Middle East, because
it's embarrassing. It is.
Yeah, because then, well, they've been forced to relocate. So it's like, well, now Jewish people from other countries, they had to either integrate into Israel, go to Israel, or some of them went to Morocco after the 6-Day War. So it's like, it's not really a good solution where you have, you know, this aggressive presence that riles up, actually riles up hatred towards Jewish people. And the rabbi that was outside protesting, he explained how that happens, you know? And it's really not good, because, you know, he is listening. You know, like there is, I don't know as much about this, but there is information about how like there were actually Jewish industrialists, like, you know, people with a lot of money that supported Hitler. And I think people don't realize that it's also a class war. Like it's not, you have your Rabbi Shmulis, your Jewish neocons, and then you had people from like Bronx Anti-War Network protesting Rabbi Shmuley, and they were Jewish. So it's like,
well, so like ever since the Prohibition era in like the 20s and like 30s, like we were like, Prohibition basically opened the door for the mob to come in and just rule the country. The government, that's basically when the government, well, I mean, it happened basically at the formation of the country, where the mob and wherever the mob came in, just shook hands with the government, decided to start working together, because now they're essentially the same thing. It's the Italian and Jewish mafia, and oftentimes they rival. Sometimes they, you know, there's factions of these criminal networks and organizations that often very much influence politics in ways that you'd be surprised. I mean, Hunter Biden just got fucking caught in a $10 million bribe with 20 phone calls from Daddy Biden, and that's the sitting president. Is he going to get impeached? Probably not.
And you know, there's something disgusting about RFK's whole campaign right now. It's like, you know, like, Greg, this is New York City. Like, we've been living with Jews around Jewish people for years. We've been living around Arabs for years. White people, black people, Chinese, Mexican, whatever. You know what I mean? But, like, RFK is, like, on the campaign trail, and he's like, which celebrity rabbi can I put on my campaign trail? Which celebrity black person can I put? You know, it's like kind of becoming disgusting, because it's like he'll take the just like he chooses like the Nation of Islam guy, the Matt Hoffa. Then he chooses Rabbi Shmuley. It's like who's he gonna choose next? Like who is he gonna choose next for the Hispanics?
This is like when Trump he just picks up all the neocons in his cabinet. He's just gonna fill these guys with all the Israel Israel mafia crime family, and then you're gonna have the Mossad and Epstein run the country like they have. So what difference are you making? The Mossad is still running the country.
Yeah. And
as long as you're still surrounding yourself like with people like this asshole, then really there's no shot. Because this is a stronger issue than people realize, because I think for years we've understand and we've gone into depth about the stranglehold Israel has on our government. Like they literally make like the decisions for us. It's not like we got pulled into 7 wars in the Middle East for no reason. Like Israel is a proxy for us. And it's a faithful companionship, but ultimately, we know where this is going. It's not like a train, but we watch friend Gage here.
Hi, first of all, I would like to thank you for your position on mandates.
Which I'm glad she did that too. God bless Gage for being like so like patient and like nice. Like her, like I felt like she was like a really good personality to approach this because of like her temperament.
It was excellent, yeah.
She did an excellent job, and that there's a reason why this went viral and why everyone covered this and why Mint Press News literally.
We'll just play the video so that there's not that many people watching, but we'll just play the video.
As a Jewish woman who cares for justice, I do have a question. It's been about a year since U.S. citizen and journalist Shireen Abu Ablaka was shot by the IDF. It is known through both video and forensic science that it was definitely the IDF and that they targeted her. Are you willing to commit to calling for Israel to extradite the soldier to the US with body cams for a public commit?
I do want to point out this.
Israel to extradite
as soon as she says
the soldier to call. Are you definitely the IDF and that they targeted her?
As soon as she says that that she was targeted, look at the reaction. He's like, "Come on, what is this? What are you saying?" Like, he turns to Shmuley right away.
Are you willing to commit to calling for Israel to extradite having a conversation one-on-one with Jewish Voice for Peace?
Wait. Let's be civil about this. What's your name, please?
My name is.
What is it? Thank you for coming tonight. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Israel is a open democracy with a free press.
I didn't ask you, by the way. I asked. No.
Let Bobby will answer in a second.
I wanted to.
Zion is handler. Look at him.
I'm going to correct misinformation. The IDF has now admitted that this renowned Palestinian journalist probably did die from an Israeli bullet during a shootout against terror. Who was there covering it? When you said that she was deliberately targeted is an absolute lie.
She was definitely targeted. She had a helmet on.
Wait.
She had a helmet on and she had. There is no way.
She covered dozens.
There is no way. He took a direct shot.
No. She covered dozens of military. She covered dozens of military raids. Why did they wait to?
It took a direct shot.
They what?
It took a direct shot to get her between the helmet and the armor.
What is your source for this?
What my source? My source is forensics and the video.
I have no source.
And the video.
So Israel conducted a lengthy investigation about this, which is what they do always. And amazingly, they admitted it probably was an Israeli bullet. And unfortunately,
Mr. Kennedy,
journalists who died.
Mr. Kennedy,
it is tragic.
Don't you think that, Mr. Kennedy, do you not think that this Yes, I am Jewish. Do not tell me that. Mr. Kennedy, please don't you believe that the U.S. should be able to adjudicate this? She was a U.S. citizen. She was also a journalist. And again, do you also commit to sitting down with the Jewish Voice for Peace and having a conversation with them, or do those Jewish voices not count?
He has to stand up.
Yes,
everyone
they do.
pointed
Thank
out
you.
that he has like this standing up issue. Like every time he gets maybe it's like some sort of.
Let him respond. And we're going to move on. Go ahead.
I don't know enough about the case to make a judgment about extradition, and I don't know.
And of course, he goes on this long lawyer answer that
I just want to say, like, his position, even among Jewish people that are like pro-Israel, it's like rabid Zionism. It's like rabid.
everyone
like,
surrounding him is like pure like ideological.
It's like crazy. Even people that are like, oh, like if you look at somebody like Marianne Williamson, whose position on Israel is horrible because it's basically just like virtue signaling to Palestinians, but not like really helping them out in reality. But even she doesn't go as far in terms of like rabid, aggressive Zionism, like the lies that he told about how Jenin is a bomb factory when it's like really mostly civilians living there. It's crazy. And not only that, but he went hardcore against Iran. And I don't know if that video is coming up next, the question on nuclear weapons. Do you have it?
Yeah. It's good that Richie asked this because there's no politician that is currently acknowledging that Israel has nuclear weapons. And it seems like RFK is, but he says that they're not going to use them. Okay.
Would you support the demand that Israel let the International Atomic Energy Agency inspect their undeclared arsenal of nuclear weapons and demand that they sign on to the Non-Proliferation Treaty?
Would I do that with Israel?
Yeah, we don't want to hold them to a different standard.
No, I would not. I think
have nuclear weapons, but nobody else in the region is.
Yeah, well, my position is I don't think that we should start an arms race in the Mideast. Israel's use of a nuclear weapon is not going to happen unless it's attacked, and we know that. Israel will never use a nuclear weapon unless it's attacked, and it's said, and even at that point, it's going to be too late. What I'm worried about is an out-of-control arms race. Iran is now trying to build a nuclear weapon, and Saudi Arabia has now said, well, if Iran builds a nuclear weapon, we want a nuclear weapon, and they're already trying to build theirs. And all of those nations have the money to invest in that program, and if enough of them get nuclear weapons, these are totalitarian regimes, they're not democracies, and somebody ultimately is
Israel's the only democracy.
Humanity.
How does that not sound any different than any other like Democrat? I don't get. I mean, understand.
I mean, it's the same exact thing. The difference is that they're upholding this guy to be some kind of like populist truth teller, and it's the same sack of shit as every other fucking Democrat. And then when those of us that like notice it, we point it out, they're all triggered about it. Like the whole thing that people do not understand is that it is not just one issue. Okay? Israel, it encompasses the entire Middle East. We've been the war on terror. It's like was a big part of our economy for the last 20 years. We bombed Iraq. We went to Afghanistan. What about the war on terror? Is this guy so hawkish on Iran that he's willing to bring back the war on terror? This is a big fucking deal. And he's saying that he's a peace and freedom candidate. And he's saying that he wants, well, we can go into that later, but he even said, that he has so much admiration for the Israeli border control that he wants to install Israel-style sensors at our southern border. So he's taking tips from the IDF. The New York City police force already takes tips from the IDF. He accidentally admitted that Israel has more nuclear weapons than anybody, and that he blindly trusts them to not use them, when Israel has the U.S. so much by the balls that every single member of Congress constantly kisses their ass, except for the squad, I guess, which I guess they're allowed to like symbolically not kiss their ass, even though they're forced to vote for them anyway, because they're like the Democrats that are supposed to be more in tune with like current popular opinion, at least on the Democratic side. And weirdly, they're more in touch with popular opinion on the Democratic side than RFK is. RFK sounds like he's like an ancient, like, you know, it's just something out of 1950. You know what I mean?
This is what you learned on Chicago.
Hello, I'm the son of Mexican immigrants and the husband of a Honduran immigrant. And so my question is on immigration. With Congress unable to reach an agreement on comprehensive immigration reform in decades, what is your plan to address immigration?
Yeah, I mean, I think, and thank you, Josue. Is it Josue? Okay, I don't think that it's going to be possible to get an immigration reform package through Congress until we seal the border, because we've got now in the last 3 years, 7 million people have come across the border illegally, and the most disturbing part of me is I witnessed the humanitarian crisis, the cruelty to these people who are being brought to the border. They're being exploited, they're being extorted, they're being raped, they're being robbed. The cartels are now running U.S. immigration policy, and everybody knows that. And there have been 9, we were told by the Border Patrol, there have been 9 suicides of Border Patrolmen in the last year because they're so...
No one talks about the human trafficking that's going on at the border. Like that's
let it keep going. Let it keep going.
I want what's happening. They are literally, it took me 3 days at the border to understand what's happening. The first night I watched, I got there at 2:00 in the morning, stayed there until about 4. And I watched just hundreds and hundreds of people coming across. The first group was about 60 African men from West Africa, mainly from Cameroon. I thought I was going to see Central Americans and, Guatemalans and Salvadorians, but I didn't. We only saw, in the whole night, there was only 2 families from Latin America, one from Colombia and one from Peru, and all of them had been brutalized and every penny taken away from them. The rest of them were from Azerbaijan, Uzbekistan, Kazakhstan, Tibet, Nepal, Pakistan, and many, many from China. The cartels are now advertising all over the world that there's an open border, and they are bringing people in. They give them videos about exactly what to do. They fly to Mexico. They're given visas there, internal visas in Mexico. They go from Mexico City on a plane to Mexicali. They're loaded on fleets of buses and then brought to the border. They cross. The only role of the Border Patrol is to stamp them in and check if they have a criminal record. If they don't, they are brought to the airport and they're given a ticket to any city in the United States that they want to go to.
Well, they have to demonstrate need and apply for asylum.
They're given a court date. And is a court date, it's like an arraignment. A real court date, which they're not going to show up to, is 7 years later. So they're essentially given a 7-year pass to stay in this country.
So how would you seal the border?
Well, you know what? It's not that hard. Because how
would you do it?
I would do it. I mean, there's a number of things that you have to do. I was against Trump's wall, but having seen it down there, I see that you were required to give a physical barrier during certain, not all the way 2,200 miles from San Diego to Brownsville, Texas, but certain highly densely populated areas, you need a physical barrier. But in the hinterlands, in the wilderness areas, you can use sensors like they do in Israel, like ground sensors and towers.
There's AI breakthroughs too. But you would rebuild, you would resume the building of Trump's border wall?
Well, a lot of it now has been rebuilt. Mayorkas, who's the DHS secretary, recognized.
So he said, I want to use Israel-style sensors. This is the problem. Israel does, they develop a lot of defense technology, and they're also, the ones developing these robot dogs and stuff. It's not just sensors. Sensors is just the beginning. And not only that, but he completely fails to answer this young man's question, which is basically, so if you look at this guy, he said, I'm like Guatemalan, Honduran or something like that. He's clearly over 20 years old. Okay. The problem for all of these people that you see here is people are not understanding. It's not just the border right now. There are people that have been here between 20 and 30 years ever since the whole NAFTA-CAFTA crisis. There was a big immigration wave between like 1994 and 2005, and a lot of those people are still here. They are totally integrated into America. They live here, they have children here, and there is no immigration amnesty for them. And the answer to his question, like, which is basically, when is my mom getting amnesty, is we're going to put Israel style sensors at the border. That wasn't the question. The question was, what are you going to do for my family? So this is like, you know, just like the level of stupidity that RFK is displaying here, he does not understand.
After seeing him in person, it's slimy as hell.
It's slimy as hell. So like, you see how slimy he is here? It's like the same shit as he did with the whole Palestine thing. But people keep insisting it's one issue. The fact that he does not understand that, like, these different voters, they have different concerns, and he keeps catering to the whole, like, border. Why doesn't he just run as a Republican? Like, it would, you know, it's better than sheep herding Republicans into the Democratic Party. It would be much better.
Super delegates.
It's
strategically, it doesn't make any sense. He's lost in this weird nostalgia land. Like, honestly, Israel is the largest exporter of tech of surveillance tech in the world.
Sorry, I had to let my dog out. They're the largest exporter. So I think it's very concerning to me that he is thinking of using Israeli technology on the border. Now, this is not to say, like, I don't believe that everybody should be allowed in the border, either from the border or by plane, by the way. It's not like immigration is only through the southern border. However, I do feel like there should be some, like, national consciousness that's like, during the small amount of time that they're here, you should at least not abuse people, not deploy sensors at them, robot dogs. Like, if you're gonna deport, but you know what I mean? Like, do it with, like, allow people their basic human dignity. That to me would be the minimum. So this is just, to me, like, the fact that he's taking tips from Israel on the border. And remember, the border is where they test a lot of these technologies out. Eventually, they use them in the police force.
They train the police here, the IDF.
Right.
They train the NYPD. So,
all right, what's the next video? Because I know Roger sent me a good one. I don't know which one you're playing next. Oh, here, yeah, the reparations.
The racist thing.
Taken away from them. Mm-hmm. Well, the only place that was paid for was Manhattan Island for $24. But the rest of it was taken illegally by force.
Can you play it from the beginning?
So where would they stand up?
Yeah.
You just had a Supreme Court that threw out. And I hear what you're saying too. And my approach is a practical approach, because you just had a Supreme Court that threw out affirmative action, which I've spoken out against that decision. But I think reparations even a heavier lift constitutionally for this court. So I'm
there's that,
right? Yeah. So, but let me ask you something, because we're talking kind of theoretically here.
Sure.
Because I spent a lot of time working with American Indians who had the whole place taken away from them. Mm-hmm. Well, the only place that was paid for was Manhattan Island for $24. But the rest of it was taken illegally by force.
Wow.
So where would they stand on the reparations scale?
Oh God, this is gonna sound terrible. Let me get a good way to say it.
He's trying to figure out how to say he doesn't care about that. Right? That's kind of where he's at.
Because as much love as I have for Native Americans, as much love as I have for Asian Americans, as much love as I have for white Americans, as much as I can sit here and tell you I have all of the above in my family, and I hug them, love them, fist fight for them, and the whole 9 yards. When it's time to circle the wagons, no one else ever asked this question of other people. Mm-hmm. No one else is asked to think about, how are these guys going to feel if we do this? No one asked the black community how we would feel when the money went to the Ukraine? No one cared. Well, what are the black people going to say? Nobody asked that question. Nobody cared what we thought. Right. Like, no, when Asians got the Stop Asian Hate bill, which I was, hey, stop beating up people just because they're Asian. Like, what are you doing? That's fucking ridiculous. That's retarded. Nobody asked us how we felt about that, so I'm not of the mind to
It's Saudi's fault, by the way. We know that through Slack messages now. So
consider other people when I'm looking out for what's good for my brothers and sisters in this struggle with me, because when the cops show up, it's just us. When we're being over policed, it's just us. When we're receiving higher sentences, it's just us. Nobody else is jumping in. When we get a treatment plant near our communities, it's just us. When we get pollution, it's just us. When our water's poisoned, when Flint can't get clean water, just us. Nobody else pulls up and says, hey, well, wait a minute. And I'm not saying other people don't support, but no one else is being asked how they feel about what's happening to us. So when it's something for us, I don't want to have to consider how someone else is going to be made to feel by the fact that 40 acres and a mule is now coming back to the people who never got it. I don't want to have to ask that question. I don't think it's fair that we should have to bear that emotional burden or have that on our conscience. I don't think we should be made to empathize with, feel bad about getting something that we were sipped on.
Right.
No one else does that.
I think. What about the blacks that own slaves?
What about them? I don't want to split those hairs either. Like these were people who were living. These were people.
That's a good question. We have descendants of those, which I'm sure we could tell you that they were actually slave owners.
For sure. And those people had to go through Jim Crow just like everybody else. Those people got called niggas to their face just like everybody else.
Let's take a break. So I think you see the point here. Like, we see the point. He kind of messed up here. I'm not saying it's some huge kind of mess up, but he keeps doing this over and over again, where he just doesn't answer the question. Like, he meets with these people ask a question, and then he diverts from the situation. It's like he sees all of these minorities as just like
that's what
same thing, Jew, Arab, Black, Asian, Honduran immigrant, Cameroonian. It's like, let's talk about the other one when they're like coming to you with their concern. They're telling you, this is my concern. And then he brings up some other shit because he thinks it's like the moment to bring up holistic thinking or something. But that is actually not the moment to bring up holistic thinking. You can be a holistic thinker or whatever, but it's actually a little bit disrespectful because that is their question for a reason. What do you think, Greg?
It's condescending. I'm curious. I haven't seen this video before. I'm really curious to see what his answer is to this.
The theory is, and I believe that it bears out, when you create businesses that you enrich the whole community. You can look at this barbershop.
Free market capitalism.
And the community
that's
that
always the answer.
It's created in here, through the existence or a grocery store, and how important it is. There's a gourmet deli across the street. If that disappeared, imagine how bad it would be for this community. Because I saw what happened in Bed-Stuy when there was no base to buy. Every business that you build enriches the community more. It enriches everybody in the community.
But we don't
but you're doing it in an organic way.
That's the next.
We don't own these businesses.
That's the next key.
Town is right. So it's not owned by us.
Right. But what I'm saying is that we need to be fostering the growth of BOPs, right?
Black-owned businesses.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
And that's what you were.
Yeah, that's
we're including loans and programs to kind of educate people on business and more of that in these communities.
Right. Mentorship programs, microloan programs, grant programs.
I feel like he's making it up as he goes. But
opportunity districts where you have, where there's an incentive for outsiders to invest in black startups, B2B startups, and all of those different mechanisms for making these communities hubs for investment and for.
Yeah, so like from what I understand, like his position on reparations is free market capital.
You're very low, your volume, by the way, Greg.
Hold on.
Like I can't hear you loudly. I don't know. Can you hear me well?
Yeah. How's the audience?
You're still very low. Maybe it's because I don't have headphones, I believe.
Yeah, was it working before? Was it fine before?
Let me see if I can plug this in.
I'll burn it down. Like you can't have.
I really think it was a big cop out for him to say this because that it's gonna fix your life.
Now your audio's out now.
Okay, can you talk? Hello? Hello?
Yeah, it's a little bit better.
Right, maybe I'll just unplug my mic and
No, I hear you now. You're good. I hear you now.
Can you hear me?
Yeah. Not anymore. Not anymore.
You can't?
No, now I can.
Let's increase the volume here. Okay.
Okay, there you go.
So I think it was a cop out because I feel like the entire point of reparations. So like, there's some crazy videos going around saying like, I want $3 million in reparations. I feel like that
in
is
California. They want like 12,000.
Yeah, I think that's missing the point too. I think the point that what he's saying, like opportunity zones and training, it's like I don't see that. I feel like the point of the idea of reparations is that for one time in your life, you get a lot of cash or you get like housing or something permanent that allows you to invest in whatever you want, to invest in a business, to use that to invest in a home or invest in whatever you want. That, so that you don't have to depend on funding for startups or like, opportunity zones. I feel like that's neoliberalism. He's not really like answering the question, which is, if you have some kind of reparations program and you assign some kind of, either like cash or non-cash benefit to, people that qualify, then it would be similar to like the VA program after World War II, where white veterans got access to like very affordable home loans with like very, but practically it was like very extremely cheap, and they had their down payments paid for or something like this. After World War II, a lot of these suburbs that got built up after World War II, it was like subsidized housing, and you got to end up owning it. And what the difference with like the black veterans after World War II is that they were locked out of a lot of these deeds, and they weren't able to gain that wealth, which is like kind of embodied in the whole single family home thing. So then you still have people living in public housing. It's like, what about public housing? What about turning over those units to the people that have lived there forever? And it's happened in New York City. You've had historical like affordable housing, like things that started as tenements basically, but over time they became co-ops, condos that people own. And I feel like people deserve that. People deserve to have public housing.
You remember Jersey City like 20 years ago? You remember how trash it was? And like now, like, and they put like that beautiful like one like resident like road there, and then like you've seen it. It's like crazy how like that they just like toss money at it, and then it blows up, and all the white people move in. All these
right, like something like, okay, he was talking about Bed-Stuy, something like Bed-Stuy. What about having those buildings, the ones that people live in, turned over to people that qualified for reparations, and then if they want to sell their apartment and like move to the suburbs or move to the countryside where it's cheaper. They can do whatever they want with that money, or with turn it into cash, or stay there in order. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not saying it has to be like just cash but this whole like thing where it's like, oh, you know, we're going to fix the problem by giving 20-year-olds access to startup money. This is like some Bitcoin bro shit. And you can tell like who's like kind of putting money into his campaign with this mentality. It's not a populist platform. It's not, and it's definitely not reparations. Like, I don't know.
What was this you linked here? Something about E. coli, RFK.
Oh, that was wild. That whole thing was crazy. So basically, he went to visit these farmers over in Yuma County, Arizona. And, well, do you want to read it?
I met with local farmers Corey Millen, Alex Mueller, Hank Guzman, Robert Barkley in Yuma, Arizona. Yuma County provides 90% of the green leafy vegetables like iceberg lettuce, arugula, spinach, and broccoli to American tables between November and April. The tsunami of migrants walking across farm fields and defecating in irrigation canals threatens the safety that the food supply.
Wait, I think there's several parts to this. I don't know if you got the full thing. The tsunami of migrants walking across farm fields and defecating in irrigation canals threatens the safety of the food supply. Last year, one of their neighbors had to plow under 88 acres of broccoli and personally absorbed $10K per acre. Now, did you see the tweet that's after this, or was that the only one?
No.
Can you flip to the next one? Because there's an article there that someone posted, and the shit is cattle runoff from Big Ag. The shit that ends up on our lettuce. And I guess one of the farmers or somebody told him that it was the migrants shitting in the fields, and he just took it as, that's what it is. It's the migrants shitting in the fields. He posted this on Twitter, and everybody's like, oh, that's so disgusting. We have to do something about the border, blah, 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 So this is like straight up, like eco-fascism platform. We have to worry about the border because they're shitting on our lettuce. Like, it's, and that's not even the source of the only source of the problem. So, but you know what I mean? Like, you want to do something about border control, people coming into the country, then, you should talk about it. But you shouldn't base it on falsehoods. And you should also not talk about, bringing Israel-style security to the border. This is fucked up. Like, the shit that RFK is saying is fucked up. And there's a lot of, like, warning signs here. And a lot of, really a lot of fanboying where people aren't calling him out. And then if you do it, it's like, you're the bad one. I'm the bad one for insulting Bobby.
Oh, no.
Like,
now they call you part of the Biden admin. If you
right.
You saw like where there's like explosions of chats happening, and like in my notifications, I'm sure your notifications. There's like back and forth between this RFK bullshit and like it's not even really a matter of debate. He's not gonna go anywhere expectedly anyway. Either he's there's no debate, there's no primary, and I don't know, I'm not really sure what he said on Jimmy Dore today, but like I think he said that like he doesn't plan on running independent either after his after he gets bumped out. So his campaign is gonna die, and he's a smug, slimy. You got to see him in person, man. It's different. It's really. It's the same thing with Steven Donziger too. It's like just like very slimy lawyer vibes.
Yeah, it's really not good because here's the thing. Like I am happy. Like I don't really care at this point about like whittling everything down to racism and being like this candidate is racist or that one. I don't care. Like I think it's more about like what policies the candidates are going to implement. But again, like Immigration, I disagree with his policies right now because he's not addressing the people that are already here, who are asking him questions. The reparations thing, I don't agree with his policy because he's proposing like neoliberalism 2.0 to something that should be like a massive investment in the African American community. Okay, it's not going to do anything for Black immigrants, but that's fine. They're asking for a massive investment in their community. That is their thing. And then the Israel thing, he basically says that we should audit Iran and let Israel do, if Iran doesn't have, if they go investigate Iran and they find that there's no nuclear weapons, Israel will unleash on Iran. Like, there's no question that they're the occupying country in the Middle East. So what is he doing here? He's not the peace candidate. He's not the civil rights candidate. He's not the immigration candidate. Who is he catering to here? So it's,
and there's like, even let's even pretend, like, entertain the fantasy that RFK wins and he becomes the president. There's so many Zionists like up that are like really like the puppet handlers, and like there's so many strings attached. Like, I mean, you have to look into AIPAC, you have to look like New American Century, all of these different, like, very, I'm not like being like conspiratorial. These are like actual like Zionists, like they have hardcore positions, like John Bolton. They're all part. Like, you have to, if you think that Israel is just one issue, you have to learn who's actually controlling the world, because it's not the president.